Are you an independent author with an incredible story to share? Are you afraid your book will get lost in a sea of books? True Vine Publishing Company can help you stand out. We're not just a publishing service, we're your partner in success. We provide personalized marketing strategies and eye-catching covers that will captivate your audience. We will build your author platform and connect with your readers. We have helped countless authors achieve success, and we can help you too. Break free from the shadows, take control of your publishing journey, and make your mark. Visit TrueVinePublishing.com or call 615-44-BOOKS to schedule a consultation.
Hello, this is Timothy Bond with True Vine Publishing Company, and you're watching the next episode of The Right Change, where our guest today is Steve Garraty, the author of Grapefruit: How Cancer Led to Living a More Fruitful Life. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. First of all, let me thank you for reaching out to be on our show. You know what? One of the goals and purpose of this podcast is to highlight authors. I believe authors change the world, and we do so by changing people's lives. And just reading your book, it is definitely a life-changing book. That the simplicity of it is, and the depth of it is amazing. And so I definitely feel great about, being able to share your story and let people hear about your story.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And I want to start too by saying thank you for having me on the show, and very excited to be here and have the conversation with you.
Absolutely. So the first thing I want to do is actually give you an opportunity to, share with people who you are. Who is Steve Garraty?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a father, about to be a grandfather actually today, as a matter of
Oh,
fact.
awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, it'll be our first grandchild. Been married. We celebrated 30 years of marriage last year. I've got two kids. One's about to be a parent. Been in sales and mostly sales leadership roles for most of my career. And this book has been a project. I guess, a lot of who I am and the foundation of who I am as a father, as a husband, as a leader, as a friend, and really my faith has been defined by this experience that I had when I came out of high school. Immediately, pretty much upon graduating from high school, I was diagnosed with stage 3 Hodgkin's, a form of cancer that is common in 18 to 25-year-olds. And I went through about 10 months of chemotherapy. So all my friends were headed off to college to have the best 4 years of their life. And I was kind of going through that. And so what started as a journal over time became a book, and just published in March. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm excited to get into this story because, you just made a statement about being a grandfather. And when people read this book, they will see how miraculous this is, how amazing of a story that you have. One of the things that really struck me, and it's a very simple message. It seems that the message of your book is your attitude is a matter of life and death.
Yeah, I guess the best stat that I could share to that, Tim, is that when I was diagnosed with cancer, the oncologist, and I'll never forget this, he first consultation, it was 1986, and he said, "Hey, prior to 1970, there was no cure for this, so I would be telling you to get your affairs in order," basically, affairs for an 18-year-old. But he was basically would be telling me to say my goodbyes. And so he was like, "The great news is, we've come a long way, and this cancer is very curable, and we need to run tests to see how far it's spread." But that really struck me as, 16 years, I was lucky, I guess, to get it when I got it versus, folks who got it prior to 1970. And so that has always stuck with me. And that's always given me, I just every day, I'm at about 13,250 days
Wow.
since I was declared cancer free that I've had on this earth. So yeah, I think it's gratitude and it's just grateful to be alive every day because I was given a second chance, is the way I view it.
Yeah. You speak about how the difference between the studies of the difference between people who had negative outlooks and negative attitudes and stressful lives compared to those who lived a life of gratitude. And that's why I said that it's like it's almost as though you believe that if you had not changed into a life of gratitude, that the negativity would have killed you, or
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Well, there's probably two parts to that. One is I was not a good teenager, and when I say that, probably a lot of people can say they were maybe not a great teenager.
right.
I was a really bad teenager, Tim. I was partying at a lifestyle that was not sustainable. I wrecked my parents' cars 5 times in high school, all under the influence of something. And so I was headed down a pretty bad path, a pretty dark path. I did not handle stress well. There was a lot going on my junior and senior year in high school. So first, cancer ended up being a blessing because it put me on a different path. I had to stop drinking. I had to stop doing drugs. I had to stop the lifestyle that I was living, which was very difficult. But I was forced to do that. So cancer put me on a different path. And then two, yeah, I read a book called Getting Well Again, and it was written by three doctors. I think one was an oncologist, one was a therapist, and I forget the other one. But it was really on, to your point, extensive studies around people that see the glass half full versus the glass half empty, and how that affects getting sick, but then also how we fight and recover. And they share a lot of statistics in the book that just really opened my eyes that I had to kind of view it as the glass half full. And so there were a lot of techniques in the book that I leveraged to try to do that because it was difficult going through chemotherapy. I lost my hair. Now I've lost it naturally. But back then at 18, it was pretty traumatic losing my hair. I had really bad mouth sores from the chemotherapy. The chemotherapy itself was about 12 to 15 hours of just brutal, vomiting and vomiting till nothing would come up. And just basically slept in the bathroom and hugged the toilet for 12 to 15 hours. And I did that every 2 weeks that I would go in for my chemo treatments. And then I would say the worst part of the chemo journey was the mental part of it. So each session got worse, and it was a lonely year. Again, I was 18, so all my friends were headed off to school or headed off to do their thing, and I was the group I was hanging with. Our social circle was built around partying, and so a lot of those folks disappeared for me during that time. And so it was a rough year in many ways. And that book and kind of thinking about mindset and how you view life, how you view your opportunities, like all that changed for me in going through cancer and through my battle.
Hmm. You said something in the book that really struck me, and I was like, mental note, I'm keeping that one. I was all but shy of posting it on my own social media. You said instead of seeing the glass half full, you determined to make sure the glass was overflowing with positivity and gratefulness. And I just thought that was amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. One thing, and I would encourage your viewers or anybody that's trying to take more of a glass half full mindset is think about the worst thing you've been through in your life. And we've all been through something or some period of our time in our life. I think the older we get, right, there's disease, there's grief, there's job loss, there's divorce, there's a lot of things in our lives it's not a question of if, it's a question of when we're going to go through something
Yeah.
traumatic or tough in our lives. And so I always anchor when I'm having a bad day. I'm in sales, so we get a lot of rejection. We have tough days. Anytime that I'm having a bad day, I literally always go back and think about my best day during chemo does not compare to, being mad that I'm stuck in traffic or being mad that I lost a sales deal that I was pursuing. And so I always try to anchor and it gives me perspective and it gives me gratitude when I kind of compare, okay, yeah, you're stuck in traffic, but that doesn't compare to, like I said, the best day going through chemotherapy. And that always helps me keep more of a positive mindset and a attitude of gratitude.
Yeah. I can tell that you actually live what you speak in this book. And I say that because you talk about a poem which was amazing. I want to read it because it was really amazing. It says, do you to realize the value of 1 year, ask a student who failed a grade. Realize the value of 1 month, ask a mother who gave birth to a premature baby. Realize the value of 1 week, ask the editor of a weekly newspaper. Realize the hour of a value of an hour, ask the lovers who are waiting to meet. Realize the value of 1 minute, ask the person who missed the train. Realize the value of 1 second, ask the person who avoided an accident. Realize the value of a millisecond, ask the person who won a silver medal in the Olympics.
It's called the value of time. And I think from all the research I've done, there's no known author of who created this poem.
Okay.
But it's been around for a long time. And I was with a large global, or I should say national, large company. And our head of sales, is 2,000 salespeople. He sent out this message with this poem. And this guy was really inspirational. And his point sending it out was like, we were towards the end of our fiscal year. And it was, hey, leverage every minute, leverage every day, every hour.
When you think about life in those terms, I understand now why you say you've had 13,000 days, or, it's like most people don't think in those terms. We just think, oh, yeah, it was 5 years ago, but now, just listening to you talk, I see that you value each day.
My book opens with a scene where I'm at rock bottom. And I would say I was, the problem with going through chemo is you don't know when the end is. It's not like, you're diagnosed and they say you're going to have 10 weeks or 10 months of treatment and then it's over. It's you go until there's no trace of cancer anymore. And so you're getting tests, you're getting CT scans and x-rays to see, is it gone? And so I never knew when it was going to be over until I showed up for a chemo treatment one time and the oncologist came in and said, great news. We've gotten it all. You're not getting chemotherapy anymore. And so my point in saying that is, it's tough. It's a mental challenge to kind of keep going through that. And my book opens with a scene where I hit rock bottom, and it was a chemo session that I had to go in for. And my mother and I got out of the car, and it was wearing me down mentally, and I had a breakdown basically. No other way to explain it than a nervous breakdown or a mental breakdown. But I asked my mother to go in and check us in. And I spent about an hour in the parking lot just sobbing and really made a spectacle out of myself to people that were passing me. But eventually, I prayed a lot. And I think I needed that to hit rock bottom. But that's, I think once I got through, it was maybe 2, 3 sessions after that of chemo that I got through and I was declared cancer free. It was, I can't describe I mean, I've had 2 children and that was an incredible experience. But being told that the cancer's gone and they got it all and you're now in remission, it makes me grateful to that poem resonates, right? Like every minute, every hour, every day that I get is a blessing, is the way that I look at it. And I think my perspective about my experience started to shift after I was declared cancer free. I wasn't going through chemo and excited and I'm going to beat it was rough. And my perspective started to shift once I was declared cancer free. And then I write about this, but I saw a movie for the first time called It's a Wonderful Life that most people have seen around the holidays. And that book really got me starting to think about how my life could be different and better because of the adversity that I went through.
Yeah. You'll probably laugh, but I decided after reading the book, let me go and watch this again. Watch It's a Wonderful Life again. But I completely resonate and agree where you talk about everything is connected. Everything that you go through has a purpose, right? And you went through that cancer situation. I know you're not overly religious, but it does seem that you like you said, that was basically grace from God to get you where you needed to be, right?
Yes. Yeah. And when I say I feel like I'm religious to the point where I have a strong relationship with God.
Mhm.
I'm not a Bible expert. I don't read the Bible a lot. I don't try to convert people or anything like that. But I do feel very solid in my relationship with God ever since that experience with cancer. Um, and so I say often, Tim, that I don't know if God gave me cancer or if cancer was the vehicle in which he got me to wake up. But I do feel like there was an intervention in my life that had I not gotten sick, I was headed down a path where either I was going to unintentionally hurt somebody and end up in prison, or I was going to end up dead myself. I was scheduled to go off to college that fall. I don't think I was ready mentally or emotionally to handle that kind of freedom. And I had already proved over the prior couple years that I was just not very responsible, and I was doing my behavior and actions were not good. And I really do feel like it took a divine intervention to put me on a different path and get me to wake up.
I'll be honest with you. When I was first reading it, it felt as though you were saying like the drinking and the drugs and the bad attitude was what caused the cancer. And I was like, I don't know about that. But then now, as we talk about it, I don't know if the actions caused it, but it does seem more of a divine orchestration as you look at it.
Agreed, agreed. But there are a lot of studies that I would say show that stress
Mhm.
and heavy stress can impact your health, specifically cancer. In that book that I mentioned earlier, Getting Well Again, they say there's a lot of commonalities in people getting sick and then something major in their life, some major trauma, stressful event in their life that happened, they say 6 to 18 months prior to being diagnosed with cancer.
Mhm.
And I felt like, it's hard to put into words, but and it was all self-inflicted, but the stress that I went through with my parents and with my family, the stress that I put on them, the amount of, headbutting that happens when you're behaving that poorly and making such poor decisions. And then I had a relationship with a girlfriend in high school that, we were on again, off again, and I did not handle that well. So there was a lot of stress, specifically my senior year. And I don't know, to this day, I'm convinced that a lot of that led towards me getting sick. And it took divine intervention to kind of put me on a better path.
Mhm. Just to go into maybe some nuggets for our viewers, um, from your experience, I know that you gave lessons that you learned through this situation. I'd love for you to share those lessons that you learned from this harrowing, but yet miraculous situation.
Yeah, I think there's probably four main ones, Tim. One we've touched on a little bit, and that is just trying to have a glass half full perspective. And I always try to do that. I always try to view things from a positive lens. I think being in sales, that helps a lot. Being a sales leader where I'm managing a sales team, that helps a lot. Sales, there's a lot of ups and downs. And so having a positive mindset is a key attribute of a lot of successful salespeople. So that's one. And then the other three would be gratitude, which we talked about a little bit, empathy, which we didn't touch on too much, and then paying it forward. And I would say those are kind of the four lessons learned, values that I think developed during my experience with cancer. And then I would say those I've applied to what I call the F's, my family, my friends, my faith, and philanthropy.
Mhm.
PH, but sounds
It
sounds
sounds
like
like
yeah, it sounds good. The four F's. But yeah, those four values I think is how I try to live my life, and I try to I try to express gratitude and empathy, and I try to pay it forward, and I try to always have a positive mindset.
Yeah. So I know for me, making life changes, you have that intention, uh, but it takes time. Are these things that you have to work on daily, or did you just from that harrowing experience, like this is who I am now?
No, it happened. It was a gradual transformation. Like I said, being told I was cancer free started some of that. It definitely with the gratitude, and then the movie helped. And I just think over time, as cancer was in my rearview mirror, I started to really develop those things. I'd say, paying it forward took a while. I went off to school and tried to forget about cancer for 4 years, and so I didn't put as much thought into it. I was trying to be a normal kid and live a normal life after going through that year. But it always weighed on me. My experience was always on my mind. But paying it forward, I think, as I got older and found opportunities to pay it forward. I think I'm in a leadership role because I like to pay it forward and help people. And that really goes back to the support system that I had when I was going through cancer. I had two friends that really stuck by me and were just unbelievable heroes in my story. Of course, my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister were unbelievable. And then there was a nurse who I never knew prior to getting sick, and she would administer my chemo drugs every 2 weeks. And she was awesome. Like she was just incredible. And so that support system I had, one, I was grateful for it. Two, I think it develops some empathy because you never know what somebody else is going through, right? When you get mad at somebody and you're honking or flipping off your horn at them on the highway, you never know what somebody's going through. And I think going through cancer made me realize that a lot. And then just having that support system around and how empathetic they were towards my plight and how supportive they were. And then eventually I wanted to give back. And I felt like these people really did a lot for me in my life to get me through the worst year of my life. And I wanted to give back and help others in any way that I can. And so I try to live my life like that. But yeah, I go through challenges, especially on the gratitude sometimes when I'm having a really bad day. Like I said, I do try to go back. There's a mental exercise I do where I go back and think about worst times that I've been through, and I think it grounds me and gives me perspective. So there's times that I'm tested in those areas, but I think the older I get and the more life experience I have, the more those four qualities or values really drive me.
For someone who says we live in a very toxic time, social media, news, television, everything so dark, I don't even see how you could find light in this darkness. What do you suggest?
That's a great question. I would say, find positive things because to your point, there's a lot. I would say I'm on social media and I promote my book on social media, but I'm on social media and I try to view it in ways that are positive. And so for me, I had people on my book launch team as an example. I had three from high school, two of which I hadn't talked to since high school, and they reached out. Social media has given me a platform to reach out to people, tell them about my book. And I've had all these folks reaching back out, telling me, hey, my child had cancer 3 years ago, and I'm going to buy a copy for them. Or I had an experience and I lost somebody to cancer, and this really resonated with me. And then there's been others. I've had people reach out with addiction or they lost a spouse. I've had some of those. And so for me, I try to view things with a glass half full mindset. And so on social media, as an example, I try not to read all the comments, right? When you see those stories that are, what do they call those that are designed to clickbait or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the shock value, and then you go in and if you get caught reading all those comments, it's you can get angry and you can get negative, and you see people arguing and threatening each other in social media. And so I stay off a lot of that. I try to use it for good and for positive things. Same thing with the news. I used to watch more of the 24-hour news channels, and I've cut back on that a lot. I tend to focus more on sports or documentaries that might be positive. It's hard. It's hard to find movies and TV shows that are positive. But yeah, it's really thinking about the intake and how much of that is negative and how much of that is making you positive and upbeat and excited about your day versus there's a lot out there that can be depressing and get you down. So I think it's what you focus on and what you intake. It's like exercise, right? If you don't go to the gym and you don't take care of yourself, your health is going to suffer. And I think the same is true for our mental health. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm like that as well. I don't watch the news anymore. And what's interesting is how offended people get at the fact that you don't want to watch the news or you don't want, and it's like this notion where you gotta be aware of what's going on. Like, I'll find out what's important, but the majority of stuff that you see on the news and in social media, like you said, is clickbait. It's this horrific or scary or threatening headline, and then you read into it, it's like, it's not even that important, right? They just want to get your attention, and then you go in with that anxiety or that stress, and you add to the fire. And so you talk about in the book the story about the wolves, the battle within, right? The wolf, the monster that's anger and hatred and stress, and then you got the monster that's love and peace. And the little boy says, "Who's gonna win that war?" And the father says, "The one you feed."
That's another one. That's another unknown author, but it's a parable that's been around for a long time, and I heard it early in my career, and I've always loved that. I do think we have a choice over what we put into our head and what information we absorb and soak in, and so yeah, it's the one you feed for sure.
Yeah. So how can people get in contact with you?
So I'm at stevegarraty.com is my website. It's Garraty. My book is on most of the major online retailers, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, etc. And there's also a link to that on my book. I mean, on my website, rather.
Awesome. Well, Steve, I appreciate you taking the time to share your book. Everyone, I highly suggested Grapefruit. I got it upside down. Grapefruit by Steve Garraty, How Cancer Led to Living a More Fruitful Life. And the grapefruit, you'll understand why he calls it grapefruit when you read the book. So Steve, I really appreciate you again. Let's go out, everyone. Let's support Steve. Let's get the word out about grapefruit. Let's follow him. I want you to like this video, share this video, and Steve, I really appreciate you. You have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Tim. Really appreciate it.